Stay away from her. The roar came too late. Grace's body was already moving, already diving, already wrapping around the screaming 6-year-old as the first gunshot shattered the diner window. Hot coffee splashed across her back. Glass rained down like deadly snow. The boy's fingernails dug into her arms, his heart hammering against her chest so hard she could feel it through both their bodies. "I've got you," she gasped into his hair. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." Another shot. Closer. The boy's scream cut off into a choked sob. She didn't know his name, didn't know why men wanted him dead. Only knew that this child, this terrified, shaking child, would not die while she had breath in her body. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and stay until the end. I promise this story will break your heart and put it back together. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far Grace's story travels. 20 minutes before Grace Mason threw herself between a child and a bullet, she was counting her tips and trying not to cry. $38. She said it out loud like hearing the number would somehow make it grow. 38 goddamn dollars. The bathroom mirror at Rosie's Diner showed her exactly what she'd become, a 25-year-old woman with yesterday's makeup, 3 hours of sleep, and dreams that were slowly dying behind her eyes. She'd done a double shift yesterday, another one the day before. Her feet ached, her back ached, her soul ached. $40 short of rent, $40 away from homelessness. Grace splashed cold water on her face and lied to her reflection. "You're fine. You're going to be fine." She wasn't fine. When she pushed back through the kitchen doors, Marcus was already at his usual counter spot, coffee steaming, newspaper spread out like he owned the place. "You look like hell, Gracie." "Good morning to you too, Marcus." She grabbed the coffee pot, her smile automatic. Waitress smile. The one that said, "I'm fine, tip me well, even when everything was falling apart." "I'm serious. When's the last time you slept?" "I sleep." "Nightmares don't count as sleep." Grace paused mid-pour. Marcus had known her since she was 16, since her first day at Rosie's when she'd spilled an entire tray of milkshakes on a customer. He'd tipped her $20 anyway and told her everyone screws up their first day. "Marcus, how short are you?" Her throat tightened. "I don't..." "For rent. How short?" The words stuck. Admitting it felt like failure, like confirmation that she was exactly what her deadbeat father always said she'd be, a nobody going nowhere. $40, she finally whispered. Marcus didn't even hesitate. His weathered hands pulled out his wallet, extracted 2 20s like they were nothing. "Marcus, no. Take it." He pressed the bills into her palm. "And before you start with that pride nonsense, remember you're going to be a teacher someday. You can pay me back when you're changing lives instead of serving coffee." Grace's vision blurred. She wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she could survive alone. But survival didn't care about pride. "Thank you." The words came out broken. "Don't thank me. Just don't give up on that degree. Promise me." She nodded, unable to speak, and tucked the money into her apron pocket next to her pathetic $38. $78, rent covered. For now. The bell above the door chimed. Grace glanced of server instinct, and every cell in her body screamed danger. 3 men walked in, and they were wrong. Everything about them was wrong. Odds that cost more than Grace made 6 months. Shoes that gleamed with the kind of shine that came from money, not effort. But it was their eyes that made her stomach drop. Cold, scanning, hunting. "Gracie," Marcus's voice had changed, lower, warning, "Don't stare." "Who are they?" "Nobody you want to know." Smile, take their order, forget their faces. But Grace couldn't look away. The men moved like predators, synchronized, aware of every exit, every person, every threat. They took a booth by the window, the one with the best view of the street, and didn't touch the menus she brought over. "Coffee," her voice came out steady. "Good, professional." The one in the middle, scar above his eyebrow, dead eyes looked through her like she was glass. "We're waiting for someone." "I'll give you a moment then." She walked away, her skin crawling. Back at the counter, Marcus had abandoned his newspaper and was watching the men with the kind of careful attention that spoke of experience. "Marcus, what's..." "Shh." His hand found hers under the counter, squeezed once. "When I say run, you run. Understand?" Ice flooded her veins. "What's happening?" "Nothing yet, maybe nothing at all. But if it goes bad, you hit that kitchen and you don't look back. Grace's heart started hammering. She'd worked at Rosie's for 9 years. She'd seen fights, seen drunks, seen cops drag people out in handcuffs. But she'd never seen Marcus scared, and Marcus was scared. The bell chimed again. A woman entered, elegant in the way that made Grace acutely aware of her stained uniform and tired face. Behind her, a man in a gray suit carried a briefcase. And between them, holding the woman's hand with a grip that spoke of trust and love, was a little boy. Grace's breath caught. He was maybe 6. Dark curls that needed cutting, brown eyes that took in everything with careful curiosity. He wore a school uniform, navy blazer, pressed shirt, tiny tie that someone had straightened with care. But it was his expression that cracked something in Grace's chest. Alert. Too alert for a child, like he'd learned young that the world required vigilance. The woman led him to a booth opposite side from the 3 men, and the boy slid in swinging legs that didn't reach the floor. Good morning. Grace appeared with menus, her smile genuine now. The boy's presence had shifted something in the air, made it feel less dangerous. What can I get you folks? Hot chocolate for Ethan, the woman said. Her voice carried authority, money control. I'll have black coffee. The man with the briefcase didn't sit. I'll wait outside, Mrs. Romano. Romano. The name detonated in Grace's mind. Romano. As in the Romano family. As in the organization that ran half the city from the shadows. As in the reason her neighborhood had protection and cops looked the other way. Are you okay, miss? The woman, Mrs. Romano, was watching her. Fine, yes, sorry. Grace forced herself to focus on the boy. Ethan, do you want breakfast? He nodded shy, his eyes dropping to the table. Can you tell me what you'd like? Pancakes, he whispered. With chocolate chips? His head snapped up, hope lighting his small face. Can I? Ethan, that's too much sugar, Mrs. Romano started. It's okay, Grace said quickly, crouching down to the boy's level. You know what I think? Kids who wear ties to breakfast deserve chocolate chip pancakes. It's basically a rule. Ethan's smile was pure sunshine. Really extra chocolate chips coming right up. She straightened, caught Mrs. Romano's expression, surprised, soft, grateful, and headed to the kitchen. But as she put the order in, her eyes kept drifting to the 3 men by the window. They were watching the Romano booth. Grace. Marcus appeared beside her, his voice urgent. Listen very carefully. Those men by the window, Marco Castellano and his crew. Who? Jesus, girl. Do you live under a rock? The Castellanos control the drug trade. And that woman and kid, he nodded toward the booth. Elena Romano and her son, wife and child of Alexander Romano. The room tilted. Grace grabbed the counter for support. Why are they here? Why are the Castellanos? I don't know, but nothing good happens when Romanos and Castellanos are in the same room. Marcus gripped her arm. When this goes bad, and it will go bad, you drop and you run. Promise me. Marcus. Promise me, Gracie. I promise. But even as she said it, her eyes found Ethan. He was coloring on the paper placement with crayons his mother had pulled from her purse, his small face serious with concentration. Outside, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. Grace's blood turned to ice. Marcus. The men at the window stood in perfect unison. Everything exploded. The door crashed open. Men poured in, 4, 5, 6, all with guns drawn. Screaming erupted. A woman knocked over a table trying to run. Coffee mugs shattered. The griddle cook burst from the kitchen and immediately retreated. Nobody move, Marco Castellano's voice boomed. Hands where I can see them. Grace's body locked. Her mind screamed run, but her legs wouldn't listen. Her eyes found Ethan. The boy had frozen crayon still clutched in his small fist, his face draining of color. Elena Romano was reaching for him, but one of the gunmen was already there, yanking her out of the booth. Where is he? Marco demanded, his gun against Elena's temple. Where's your husband? I don't know. Elena's composure shattered. Please, my son. Your son's leverage. Where is Romano? Time fractured into pieces. Grace saw the gun, saw it shift toward the booth, toward Ethan, toward the terrified 6-year-old who was alone, exposed, vulnerable. She didn't think. Her body moved before her brain could stop it. She ran 3 steps forward and threw herself under the table, wrapping around Ethan like a shield. Get down, she screamed, pressing his face into her chest. Don't look, baby, don't look. The first gunshot exploded. Ethan's scream pierced her eardrum. Grace curled tighter, her body covering every inch of him. Glass shattered, wood splintered. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. "I've got you," she gasped into his hair. "I've got you, I've got you, I've got you." Another shot. The table above them jerked. Ethan was sobbing, his small hands fisting in her uniform, his whole body shaking so hard Grace thought he might break apart. "Breathe, baby, breathe with me." She forced her voice steady even though she was terrified. "In and out, just like me. Feel my breathing. Mommy. Mommy's okay. Mommy's gonna be okay. Right now you're with me and I'm not letting go." She started humming. Didn't know if it would help, but her mother used to hum when Grace was scared. "You are my sunshine." Stupid song. But Ethan's sobbing quieted slightly, his ear pressed to her chest where he could feel the vibration. "That's it, sweet boy. Listen to the song, just the song." "Last chance, Elena," Marco's voice. "Tell me where Romano is or I start shooting customers." "I don't know." Elena's scream was raw. "He doesn't tell me his schedules, please." "Then I guess we wait for him to come to you." The door exploded open with such force it flew off its hinges. "Stay away from her!" The voice cut through the chaos like a blade deep, commanding absolutely lethal. Grace looked up. A man stood in the doorway and he was fury incarnate. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Grace's car. But it was his face that stopped her heart. Handsome in a brutal way, all sharp angles and cold rage. And his eyes, dark calculating, promising death, swept the diner. Alexander Romano had arrived. "You made a mistake, Marco." His voice was quiet now, somehow more terrifying. "You made a mistake touching my wife, but you're about to make a worse one. I've got 6 guns on you, Romano, and I've got 30 outside. So the question is, do you want to walk out of here or do you want your family to collect your body parts for the next month?" The standoff stretched. Grace kept humming, kept holding Ethan, her heart slamming so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Check the kid," Marco ordered. No. Elena's protest was cut off. One of the gunmen moved toward the booth. Grace saw his shoes approaching, saw him crouch down. He looked at her, really looked, and his eyes widened slightly. "Boss, there's a witness. Waitress. She's got the kid." Grace's world stopped. "Let her go." Alexander's voice. "Steel and ice. She's nobody." The word hit Grace like a slap. Nobody. Her whole life summed up in one word. "She's somebody now," Marco said. "She's seen our faces, knows our names." "Then you've got a bigger problem than my wife. Because if you hurt her, you hurt my son. And if you hurt my son, I will erase your bloodline from existence." The promise in those words made Grace's blood run cold. "Marco," a new voice, older, rougher. "This is a bad play. We didn't come here for a war. We came here for leverage. And we got none. Romano's got the building surrounded. We're dead if we stay." Silence. Terrible, loaded silence where Grace could hear her own heartbeat, could hear Ethan's ragged breathing, could hear the click of guns being readjusted. "This isn't over, Romano. It is for today. Walk away, Marco, while you still can." More silence. Then footsteps. Retreating. The bell chimed as the door opened, closed. "Everyone out," Alexander ordered. "Now, move." Grace heard scrambling, heard people running, but she couldn't move. Her arms were locked around Ethan, her body a shield she couldn't lower. Shock and adrenaline had frozen her in place. "Miss," Alexander Romano's voice was suddenly close, surprisingly gentle. "They're gone. You're safe now." Safe. The word felt foreign. "Miss, I need you to let my son go." Grace's arms wouldn't listen. She was shaking now, delayed reaction hitting hard. "Ethan." Alexander's voice changed, softened. "Buddy, it's Dad. Can you come out for me?" "Daddy." Ethan's voice was so small, so broken. "I'm right here, son. Right here." Slowly, so slowly, Grace's arms loosened. Ethan crawled out from under the table and Alexander caught him, pulled him close in one smooth motion. The boy buried his face in his father's neck and sobbed like his heart was breaking. Grace stayed under the table, her whole body trembling. She could hear Alexander murmuring to Ethan, could hear Elena crying, could hear the distant wail of sirens. Miss Alexander's face appeared at table level. "Are you hurt?" Grace shook her head. Words wouldn't form. Can you come out? She tried. Her legs refused to cooperate. The adrenaline crash was hitting like a truck. Alexander handed Ethan to someone else. A bodyguard materialized from nowhere, and then he was reaching under the table. I'm going to help you. Is that okay? Grace nodded. His hands, warm, strong, surprisingly gentle, gripped her arms and pulled her out slowly. He helped her to her feet, even though her legs felt like water steadied her when she swayed. Sit. He guided her to the booth. Grace sat. The diner looked like a war zone, shattered glass, overturned furniture, bullet holes in the walls. Her hands started shaking harder. Look at me. Alexander crouched in front of her, his eyes intense. You saved my son's life. What's your name? Grace. It came out as a whisper. Grace Mason. Grace, he said it like a prayer. How did you know to cover him? I didn't know. She looked at Ethan safe in his mother's arms. He's a child. He needed someone. Something flickered in Alexander's eyes. Surprise, respect, maybe confusion. You didn't even hesitate. Would you? Grace met his gaze. If you saw a scared kid and men with guns, would you hesitate? Most people would. Then most people are wrong. A small smile touched his lips. Brief. Gone. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Victor, clean up at Rosie's. 10 minutes, no police. He paused. I don't care what you have to do. Make it happen. He ended the call and studied Grace again. I need to ask you something. Okay? When the police arrive and will you tell them you didn't see anything? You were in the kitchen. You heard noise. You came out after everyone left. Grace's shock-fogged brain tried to process this. You want me to lie? I want you alive. His voice hardened. You saw the Castellanos. You know their faces. You're a witness. That makes you a liability. The word penetrated. Liability. So I just forget. For your own safety, yes. He reached for his wallet, pulled out 5 crisp $100 bills. For your trouble and your silence. Grace stared at the money. $500, more than she made in 2 weeks. Enough to cover rent and food and maybe finally a full night's sleep. She pushed it away. No. Alexander's eyebrows rose. No. I didn't do it for money. I did it because a child needed help. Grace stood on shaking legs. I don't want to be paid for basic human decency. For a long moment, Alexander just looked at her, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Everyone wants money, Miss Mason. I'm not everyone, and my name is Grace. Something changed in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. Grace, then, he pocketed the money. But understand something. The Castellanos saw you. They know your face. They'll see you as a loose end, which means you're in danger. The words finally cut through her shock. What kind of danger? The permanent kind if you're not careful. He pulled out a business card, wrote on the back. This is my private number. If anything happens, anything strange, anyone following you, any feeling that something's off, you call me immediately. Grace took the card with numb fingers. Why would you help me? Because you help my son, and I protect the people who protect my family. He straightened, called over his shoulder. Elena, get Ethan to the car. Elena moved quickly, carrying Ethan toward the door. But the boy looked back, his red-rimmed eyes finding Grace. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for saving me. Grace's heart cracked clean open. You're welcome, sweetheart. Then they were gone, black SUVs peeling away. Sirens getting closer, and Grace was standing in the wreckage of her ordinary morning holding a business card that connected her to a world she'd spent her whole life avoiding. Marcus appeared beside her, pale and shaking. Gracie. Jesus Christ, Gracie. I'm okay. You threw yourself in front of guns. There was a child, Marcus. What was I supposed to do? Literally anything else. But his arms came around her, and Grace let herself lean into the hug. You're the bravest damn fool I've ever met. Stupid, you mean? Brave and stupid aren't mutually exclusive. He pulled back, looked at her seriously. That card Romano gave you, keep it close. He's a monster, but he's a monster who keeps his promises. If he said he'd protect you, he will. Grace looked at the card in her hand. Alexander Romano's number, a lifeline, a threat, a choice. The police arrived. Grace told them she'd been in the bathroom, heard noise, came out after. She hated lying, but the detective's eyes were flat bored, like he already knew she was lying and didn't care enough to push. "Smart girl," he said as he left. When the last cop car pulled away, Grace finally let herself sit down. Her hands were still shaking. Her uniform was stained with coffee and terror, and somewhere in her apron pocket, she had $78 and a business card that might save her life or end it. She pulled out her phone and Googled Alexander Romano. The images that came up showed a man in expensive suits at charity galas. Articles about his import business that everyone knew was code for organized crime. Photos of Elena in designer dresses. And one picture, just one, of little Ethan at a park, his face mostly hidden, his bodyguards looming in the background. A child who needed round-the-clock protection. A child who'd been terrified. A child that she'd held while the world exploded around them. Grace closed the browser and stared at her reflection in her phone's black screen. 25 years old, waitress, dreams of teaching, and now inexplicably, impossibly connected to the most dangerous family in the city. "What did you do, Grace?" she whispered to herself. But she knew. She'd done the only thing she could do. She'd protected an innocent child, and somehow she knew with bone-deep certainty that decision was about to change everything. The next morning, Grace woke up to 43 missed calls. Her phone had been buzzing since 3 a.m., vibrating against her nightstand like an angry wasp. She grabbed it with shaking hands, squinting at the screen through exhausted eyes. Unknown number. All of them. Her stomach dropped. She played the first voicemail. Static. Breathing. Then a voice distorted, mechanical. "We know where you live, Grace Mason." The phone slipped from her fingers. She sat frozen on her bed, her heart hammering, staring at the device like it might explode. The second voicemail was worse. The third made her physically sick. By the 10th, she stopped listening. They all said variations of the same thing. "We're watching. We're coming. You made a mistake." Grace's hands found Alexander Romano's business card on her nightstand. She'd fallen asleep holding it like a talisman against nightmares that had found her anyway. Her finger hovered over the call button. No, she couldn't, wouldn't. She'd handled her entire life without help from danger of men. She could handle this. She got dressed for work, her movements mechanical. Jeans, t-shirt, sneakers, instead of her usual flats, something she could run in if needed. The thought made her hands shake harder. Outside her apartment building, the morning was wrong. Grace felt it before she saw anything specific. Just wrong. Like the air pressure had changed, like the world had tilted slightly off its axis. A black sedan was parked across the street. Engine off, windows tinted. She told herself it meant nothing. People parked on streets. It was normal. But the car hadn't been there yesterday. Grace walked toward the bus stop, her pace deliberately casual, even though every instinct screamed run. She could feel eyes on her back. Heavy. Assessing. At the corner, she risked a glance back. The sedan's engine started. Her breath caught. She walked faster, not quite running. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. She could make it. Had to make it. Behind her, the sedan pulled into traffic. Following. Grace's walk became a jog, then a run. Her bag banged against her hip, her keys jingling in her pocket. The bus stop came into view, empty, no bus, just her and whoever was in that car. She ducked into a coffee shop, instead her heart slamming. The barista looked up, startled by her entrance. "Bathroom!" Grace gasped. "Back corner! Past!" Grace was already moving. She locked herself in the single-stall bathroom and pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. Alexander's number stared back at her. She pressed call before she could change her mind. 1 ring, 2, 3. "Miss Mason?" His voice was calm, unsurprised, like he'd been expecting this. "What happened?" "Someone's following me." The words tumbled out. "Black sedan. They've been calling all night, threatening messages. I don't know what to do." "Where are you?" "Coffee shop on 5th and Main. I ran." "Stay there. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you." The line went dead. Grace stared at her phone. That was it. Stay here. She sank onto the closed toilet lid, her legs giving out. Her whole body was shaking now. Adrenaline and terror mixing into something that felt like drowning. 3 minutes passed. 5. 10. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. Grace jumped, her heart in her throat. "Occupied," her voice cracked. Miss Mason, it's Victor. Mr. Romano sent me. She didn't move. How do I know that's true? He said to tell you that Ethan asked about you this morning. Asked if the nice lady who saved him was okay. A pause. The boy won't stop talking about you. Something in Grace's chest loosened. She opened the door. A man stood there tall, built like he ate bodyguards for breakfast, wearing a suit that barely contained his shoulders. But his eyes were kind when they met hers. Victor Petrov, I work for Mr. Romano. He's waiting in the car. The black sedan. No, ma'am. That one's been neutralized. Neutralized. The word sent a chill down Grace's spine. Victor led her through the coffee shop. Outside, a different car waited, sleek, expensive, bulletproof, if Grace had to guess. The back door opened and Alexander Romano looked out. Get in. It wasn't a request. Grace climbed in and the door shut behind her with the solid thunk of money and security. The interior smelled like leather and something expensive she couldn't name. The sedan, she asked. Castellano's men. They've been watching you since yesterday. Alexander's jaw was tight. Victor's team is discouraging them. What does that mean? It means they'll think twice before following you again. He pulled out a tablet, showed her a screen. These are the calls you received. We traced them. 3 different numbers, all burner phones, or phones all purchased in the same location. Grace stared at the data. How did you get my phone records? Does it matter? Yes. Alexander's eyes met hers. I protect what's mine, Miss Mason. And whether you like it or not, you became mine the moment you covered my son. I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. Tell that to the Castellanos. He swiped to another screen. They put a price on your head. $5,000 for information on your location. $10,000 for access. The world tilted. Access, son. To hurt you. To silence you. His voice was flat, factual. They're not playing games, Grace. This is how they operate. Her name. He'd used her first name. So what am I supposed to do, hide forever? No, you're supposed to let me protect you. I don't need... You do, he cut her off. And I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you how this works. You have 2 options. Option 1, you accept my protection, you stay alive, and the Castellanos learn that touching you means war. Option 2, you refuse, you die within a week, and I lose the woman who saved my son's life. Grace's hands fisted in her lap. Those aren't real options. They're the only ones you have. She wanted to argue, to fight, to prove she didn't need saving. But the fear sitting in her chest said otherwise. What does protection look like? Bodyguards, monitored apartment, secure transportation. He paused. And a job. A job. Ethan needs a tutor, someone he trusts, someone who makes him feel safe. Alexander's expression softened slightly. He hasn't slept since the diner. Nightmares, panic attacks. But this morning he asked about you, the nice lady who held him, who sang to him. Grace's throat tightened. I just hummed a song. It's the first time he's spoken since the incident. The first time he's shown interest in anything. Alexander leaned forward. I'm not asking you to risk your life for free, Grace. I'm offering you a position, tutor my son. In exchange, you get safety, a salary, and the resources to finish your degree. How do you know about my degree? He gave her a look that said, really right. Of course he'd investigated her, probably knew everything down to her shoe size. I have a job, my apartment, my life. Your apartment was broken into 3 hours ago. Grace's heart stopped. What? My security team has been monitoring your building since yesterday. At 6:47 a.m., 2 men entered through your window. They searched your apartment, took photos of your personal items, and left a message. He handed her a phone showing a photo of her bathroom mirror. Written in red lipstick, you're next. Grace's vision swam. Her bathroom, her mirror, her lipstick. I'm going to be sick. Victor, somehow anticipating this, handed back a bottle of water. Grace drank, her hands shaking so badly the water spilled down her chin. Your life as you knew it ended the moment you protected Ethan. Alexander said quietly, I'm sorry for that, truly, but I can't undo it. All I can do is keep you alive. By making me a prisoner. By making you family. The word hung between them. Ethan needs you, Alexander continued, and frankly, so do I. My son hasn't trusted anyone outside our immediate circle since he was old enough to understand what his last name means. But he trusted you. In the worst moment of his life, he trusted you to keep him safe. That's not something I can buy or manufacture. Grace looked out the window. They were driving now, though she hadn't noticed when they'd started moving. The city slid past familiar and suddenly foreign. What happens if I say no? I put you in a safe house under armed guard until the Castellano threat is neutralized. Could be weeks, could be months. He paused. But Ethan will think you abandoned him, that the nice lady who saved him didn't care enough to stay. That's manipulative. That's honest. Alexander's eyes were steady. I could lie to you, tell you everything will be fine, that you can go back to your normal life. But we both know that's not true. So I'm giving you the real choice. Help my son while I help you, or hide while he suffers. Grace closed her eyes. When had her life become this? Yesterday, she'd been worried about $40. Today, she was negotiating with a crime boss about whether to become his son's tutor or go into protective custody. Can I think about it? You have until we reach my estate, approximately 8 more minutes. That's not enough time to... It's all the time there is. The Castellanos are escalating. Every hour you're unprotected is an hour they could get to you. The car turned onto a private road. Trees lined both sides, perfectly manicured, hiding whatever lay beyond. If I agree, Grace said slowly, I want things in writing, salary, benefits, time off. And I finish my degree, non-negotiable. Something that might have been respect flickered in Alexander's eyes. Done. And I'm not doing anything illegal. You'll be teaching a 6-year-old to read and do math. The only crime will be how many times he asked you to read the same book. Despite everything, Grace almost smiled. The car emerged from the trees and Grace's breath caught. The Romano estate sprawled before them, mansion didn't cover it. This was a compound. Main house, guest houses, security buildings, all connected by stone pathways and surrounded by walls that probably had more security than Fort Knox. This is where you live. This is where we live, if you agree. The car stopped at the main entrance. Victor opened Grace's door, his hand out to help her. She stepped out onto cobblestones, her sneakers looking ridiculous against the grandeur. Everything about this place screamed money and power and danger. The front door opened and Elena Romano appeared. She looked different from the terrified woman in the diner, composed now elegant, in casual clothes that probably cost more than Grace's entire wardrobe. Miss Mason, Elena's voice was warm. Thank you for coming. I'm not sure I had a choice. You always have a choice. Elena descended the steps. But I hope you'll choose to help us. Ethan has been asking for you. As if summoned, a small voice called from inside. Is that her? Is that Grace? And then Ethan was there, running past his mother, his small face lighting up when he saw her. You came, Daddy said you might come. He stopped just short of her, suddenly shy, his hands twisting together. The bruises under his eyes told Grace he hadn't slept. The tremor in his small body told her the nightmares were real. Grace crouched down to his level. Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling? Scared, he whispered. But less scared now. You're here. Something in Grace's chest cracked wide open. This child, this brave, terrified, trusting child who'd been through hell and still found the courage to smile at her. I'm here, she heard herself say. I'm not going anywhere. Ethan launched himself out on her, his small arms wrapping around her neck. Grace caught him, held him, and over his shoulder met Alexander's gaze. The man's expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes held something that looked like relief. Does this mean you'll teach me? Ethan pulled back, hopeful. Daddy said you're the smartest person he knows. Did he now? Grace glanced at Alexander, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I might have exaggerated slightly. Mommy said you saved my life. Ethan's small hands found Grace's face. Is that true? Grace's throat closed. I just held you, honey. That's all. That's everything. Elena's voice was thick. Miss Mason, I can never repay what you did. But if you'll let me try it, I'd like to offer you not just a job, but a home, a safe place, a family. Family, there was that word again. Grace had been alone most of her life, her mother dead, her father gone. No siblings, no real friends except Marcus. The idea of family, of belonging somewhere, was so foreign it hurt. I don't fit in this world, she said quietly. Neither did I once. Elena smiled. I was a kindergarten teacher when I met Alexander, working 3 job student loans up to my eyeballs, living in an apartment with more roaches than furniture. This life chose me, just like it's choosing you. But I didn't ask for, neither did I, but here we are. Elena's hand found Grace's shoulder. And I can tell you this, whatever you think this world is, whatever you've heard or imagined, there's more to it. There's also loyalty and protection and people who would die for you. That's worth something. Ethan tugged on Grace's hand. Can I show you my room? I have books, lots of books. Grace looked at the boy's hopeful face and at Elena's encouraging smile, at Alexander watching from the steps with an expression she couldn't read. She thought about her tiny apartment with its threatening message, her phone full of death threats, the black sedan following her, the life she'd built that had crumbled in less than 24 hours. And she thought about this child who'd trusted her when he had no reason to, who'd felt safe in her arms when the world exploded around them, who was asking her please to stay. Okay, she said. Okay, yes, I'll do it. Ethan's whoop of joy was genuine and infectious. Elena's relief was visible. And Alexander nodded once, a gesture that felt like a promise and a warning all at once. Victor will get your things from your apartment, Alexander said. You'll stay in the East Wing guest suite. Ethan's lessons will be weekday mornings, 3 hours. Afternoons, you're free to work on your degree. I've arranged access to online courses through the state university. Grace blinked. You arranged when? This morning, while you were in the coffee shop bathroom. He said it like it was normal to reorganize someone's entire life in 15 minutes. You'll also need a security briefing, medical check, and Alexander. Elena's voice held a warning. Let her breathe. She'll breathe when she's safe. But he softened slightly. Tomorrow. The briefings can wait until tomorrow. Ethan was already pulling Grace toward the house, chattering about his books and his room. And did she like dinosaurs? Because he really liked dinosaurs. Grace let herself be led, her mind spinning. She'd agreed. She'd actually agreed to this insanity. As they entered the house, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that probably cost more than Grace would make in a lifetime, she caught sight of herself in a mirror. Same tired face, same worn clothes. But something in her eyes had changed. Yesterday, she'd been a waitress with dreams she'd almost given up on. Today, she was a tutor to a mafia boss's son, living in a mansion protected by men with guns, teaching a child who'd survived an assassination attempt. Her life had gone from ordinary to impossible in the span of a single act of courage. And looking at Ethan's small hand in hers, at the trust in his eyes, at the possibility of actually finishing her degree and becoming the teacher she'd always wanted to be, Grace realized she wouldn't change it, not even if she could. This is my library, Ethan announced, throwing open a door to reveal a room lined floor to ceiling with books. Children's books, adult books, everything in between. Daddy says I can read anything I want. Grace's heart swelled. A child with unlimited access to books. A job teaching someone who wanted to learn. Safety, security, a chance to finish her degree. Maybe this was insane, but maybe insane was exactly what her life needed to be. Grace spent her first night in the Romano mansion not sleeping. The guest suite was bigger than her entire apartment. King bed with sheets that probably cost more than her car. Marble bathroom. Walk-in closet already filled with clothes in her exact size, which should have been comforting, but was actually terrifying because how did they know? She lay in the dark staring at the ceiling, listening to footsteps in the hallway. Guards, constant patrol. The sounds should have made her feel safe. It made her feel trapped. At 3 a.m., she gave up and pulled out her phone. 17 new missed calls, all unknown numbers. She blocked them without listening, but her hands shook doing it. A soft knock on her door made her jump. Miss Mason, Victor's voice. You have a visitor. Grace grabbed the robe hanging on the bathroom door, silk expensive, not hers, and opened the door. Victor stood there in full tactical gear, which at 3 a.m. should have been alarming, but somehow wasn't. A visitor now. Mr. Romano thought you might not be sleeping. Victor's expression was apologetic. He asked if you'd join him in his study. Not a request, never a request with these people. Grace followed Victor through hallways that felt like a maze. Every corner had cameras. Every door had keypads. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. Alexander's study was on the third floor behind a door that required both a code and a fingerprint. Victor opened it and stepped aside. Alexander sat behind a massive desk papers spread before him, a glass of whiskey untouched at his elbow. He looked up when Grace entered, and she saw the exhaustion in his eyes. "You couldn't sleep either," he said. Not a question. "Hard to sleep when people want you dead. You'll get used to it. That's not comforting." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Sit, please." Grace sat in the leather chair across from him, suddenly aware she was in a bathrobe, in a crime boss's study at 3 a.m. This was not how she'd imagined her life going. "I wanted to apologize," Alexander said, "for dragging you into this. You saved my son's life, and I repaid you by making you a target. You didn't make me a target, the Castellanos did, because you were in my world, which makes it my fault." He picked up the whiskey, didn't drink it. "I could have handled it differently. Paid you off, given you a new identity, relocated you somewhere safe. Instead, I brought you here, made you part of this. You gave me a choice. Did I, or did I manipulate you with Ethan's tears and Elena's gratitude until you had no choice at all?" Grace studied him. "Are you trying to give me an out? Let me leave." "No." The word was immediate, certain. "I'm trying to be honest about what a bastard I am for keeping you here. At least you're self-aware." This time the smile reached his eyes. "My therapist charges $300 an hour for that observation." "You have a therapist. Even monsters need someone to talk to." He finally took a sip of whiskey. "Tomorrow, Victor will give you the full security briefing. It won't be pleasant. You'll learn exactly how dangerous the Castellanos are, what they're capable of, and why you can't leave this property without armed guards." Grace's stomach nodded. "I'm really a prisoner then." "You're really protected. There's a difference." "Not from where I'm sitting." Alexander walked to the window. His profile was sharp against the moonlight, all hard angles and controlled power. "When Elena was pregnant with Ethan, the Castellanos sent a package to our home. A baby blanket, blue, with a note that said, 'For your son's funeral.'" His voice was flat, factual. "I killed 3 of their men the next day. Started a war that lasted 6 months. But the message was received. My family was off limits." Grace's throat tightened. "What changed?" "I took something from them, a weapons shipment they claim was theirs. It wasn't, it belonged to a third party, but facts don't matter in this world. Perception does, and they perceive weakness." He turned to face her. "You became part of that weakness the moment you touched my son." "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. You acted on instinct, pure selfless instinct. It's admirable. It's also why you're in danger now." He moved closer. "But here's what the Castellanos don't understand. You're not a weakness. You're a strength. Because anyone who threatens you now threatens my son's happiness, and I will burn their world to ash before I let that happen." The intensity in his voice made Grace shiver. "That's a lot of responsibility to put on a waitress you met yesterday." "You're not a waitress anymore. You're Ethan's teacher, my employee, under my protection." He paused. "And if I'm being honest, you're the first person in years who's reminded me that not everyone in this world is motivated by greed or fear. What else is there? Love, apparently." He said it like the concept was foreign. "You loved that child enough to die for him without knowing his name." "I didn't think about it." "Exactly. You didn't calculate odds or weigh benefits. You just acted." Alexander's expression softened. "Ethan hasn't stopped talking about you. Not since he woke up from his nightmare 3 hours ago." Grace sat up straighter. "He had a nightmare. The diner. Over and over. But this time in the dream you weren't there. He was alone." Alexander's jaw tightened. He woke up screaming for the nice lady. For Grace. Elena tried to calm him, but he wouldn't settle until I promised him you were here, that you were safe, that you'd be there when he woke up. Tears pricked Grace's eyes. "I didn't know." "How could you? But now you understand why I can't let you leave, not just for your safety, for his sanity." A soft chime interrupted them. Alexander pulled out his phone and his expression went cold. "What is it?" "Castellanos just hit one of our warehouses, burned it to the ground." He was already moving, opening the door. "Victor, get Elena and Ethan to the safe room. Now." Grace's heart stopped. "They're coming here." "I don't know, but I'm not taking chances." He turned to her. Go with Victor. Stay with Elena and Ethan. Don't leave the safe room until I come for you personally. What about you? I'm handling this. He was already at his desk pulling out a gun from a drawer. The casual way he checked the magazine made Grace's stomach turn. Victor appeared. Sir, family is secure. Miss Mason, I'll take her, go. Victor's hand on Grace's arm was gentle but firm. She let herself be pulled from the study down the hallway, her mind racing. This was real. The danger was real. Men with guns in burned warehouses and safe rooms were now her reality. They descended stairs. Grace hadn't known existed through a door hidden behind a bookshelf into a bunker that looked like something from a spy movie. Elena was there in pajamas holding Ethan, who was crying softly. Is Daddy okay? He asked when he saw Grace. Your daddy is fine, sweetheart. He's just being careful. Like in the diner. Grace's heart broke. Not like the diner. Nothing bad is going to happen. You promise. She couldn't promise that. Shouldn't. But looking at his terrified face, she heard herself say, I promise. Elena gave her a grateful look and guided Ethan to a couch. The safe room was surprisingly comfortable. Beds, bathroom, kitchenette, entertainment system. Designed for long stays. How often does this happen? Grace asked Victor quietly. Threats weekly, actual attacks. He considered, this is the first in 8 months. That's supposed to be comforting. In this world, yes. Grace sank into a chair, her legs shaking. Across the room, Elena was reading to Ethan, her voice steady despite the fear Grace could see in her eyes. 20 minutes passed, 30, an hour. Then Alexander's voice came through a speaker. All clear, false alarm. Warehouse fire was unrelated. The relief in the room was palpable. But as they emerged from the bunker, Grace caught the look Alexander and Victor exchanged. Whatever had happened, false alarm, wasn't the whole truth. The sun was rising when Grace finally returned to her suite. She had exactly 3 hours before Ethan's first lesson. 3 hours to process the fact that she now lived in a world where safe rooms and armed guards were necessary. She didn't sleep. She showered, dressed in clothes from the closet that fit perfectly, and tried to prepare herself to teach a traumatized 6-year-old. At 9 a.m. sharp, Elena brought Ethan to the library. The boy looked exhausted but brightened when he saw Grace. You're really here. I thought maybe I dreamed it. I'm really here. Grace knelt to his level, ready to learn some stuff. What kind of stuff? Whatever you want. What are you curious about? Ethan's eyes lit up. Everything. And for the next 3 hours, Grace forgot about danger and threats and burned warehouses. She lost herself in the pure joy of teaching a brilliant, curious child who soaked up knowledge like a sponge. They read about dinosaurs and did math problems and practiced writing. Ethan stumbled over words, sometimes got frustrated with numbers, but he tried. God, did he try. I'm not good at this, he said when he couldn't solve a subtraction problem. You're learning. That's different from being good. Learning is harder and braver. Really, being good at something is easy. Learning something new is scary, but you're doing it anyway. That makes you brave. Ethan considered this. Like you were brave in the diner. Like we both were brave. You were scared, but you trusted me. That took courage. I wasn't brave. I cried. Brave people cry too. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Ethan hugged her suddenly fiercely. I'm glad you're here, Grace. Her throat closed. Me too, sweetheart. When Elena collected him for lunch, Grace felt oddly bereft. Teaching Ethan had filled something in her she hadn't known was empty. You're good with him. Elena's voice was soft. Better than any of the tutors we've tried. He actually wants to learn with you. He's a good kid. He's a Romano. Good doesn't come naturally to us. Elena's smile was sad. But you make him want to be good. That's a gift. After lunch, Victor appeared for the promised security briefing. It was 3 hours of hell, photos of Castellano family members, descriptions of their methods, stories of what they'd done to people who crossed them. Grace threw up twice during the presentation. I need you to understand the reality, Victor said, not unkindly. These aren't movie villains. They're real men who do real violence, and they want you dead. Why me specifically? I'm nobody. You humiliated them. You protected Romano's son while Castellano men stood there with guns. You made them look weak. Victor's expression was grim. In this world, perceived weakness gets you killed, so they'll kill you to prove they're not weak. That's insane. That's the life. Grace spent the rest of the afternoon in her room trying to process. She pulled out her phone to call Marcus, realized her old number was probably compromised, and felt the isolation settle over her like a blanket. She disappeared from her own life. No warning, no goodbye, just vanished. A knock interrupted her spiral. She opened the door to find Alexander still in the suit from this morning, looking exhausted. "Can we talk?" Grace stepped aside. He entered her suite, and the space suddenly felt smaller. "The warehouse fire wasn't an accident," he said without preamble. "It was a message. They know you're here." Grace's blood went cold. "Someone, help, we're investigating, but someone leaked your location. Someone here in your house. Possibly, or someone in my organization." His jaw was tight. "Either way, we have a problem." "A problem? We have a traitor. I'm handling it." "How?" "By putting me in a safe room every time they make a move." Grace's fear was turning to anger. "I can't live like this. You think I want this? You think I enjoy knowing someone I trust might be betraying my family?" Alexander's control cracked slightly. "I have 47 people with access to sensitive information. Any one of them could be the leak. So yes, until I find them, you stay locked down." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." That's not an answer. "It's the only one I have." His voice rose, then he visibly pulled himself back. "I'm sorry, this isn't your fault." "Isn't it I'm the reason they're escalating?" "No, I'm the reason." He moved closer. "I brought you here. I made you valuable to them. I put you in danger." His hand found her cheek, surprising them both. "And I will fix this, I swear to you." Grace's breath caught. His touch was gentle, at odds with everything else about him. "Mr. Romano." "Alexander, please. When it's just us, call me Alexander." "Alexander," she whispered, "what if you can't fix it?" "Then I'll die trying. But you'll be safe, I promise you that." The moment stretched charged with something Grace didn't want to name. Then Alexander's phone buzzed and he stepped back, the wall slamming back into place. "Victor found something. I need to go." He paused at the door. "Dinner is at 7. Elena expects you there. It would mean a lot to Ethan." Then he was gone, leaving Grace alone with her racing heart and the ghost of his touch on her cheek. Dinner was surreal. They ate at a table that could seat 20, just the four of them. Ethan chattered about his day. Elena asked about Grace's teaching background, and Alexander said almost nothing but watched everyone with sharp eyes. Grace was helping clear plates when Ethan tugged her sleeve. "Can you tuck me in? Mama usually does it, but..." He looked at his mother. "Can Grace do it tonight?" Elena's expression was complicated. "If Grace doesn't mind." "I don't mind." Ethan's room was a child's paradise, toys, books, a bed shaped like a race car. But it was the bodyguard stationed outside the door that reminded Grace where she was. "Does that man always stand there?" Grace asked as Ethan climbed into bed. "Every night, in case bad people come." He said it so matter-of-factly it hurt. "But I'm not scared when he's there." "That's good." "I'm not scared when you're here either." Ethan's small hand found hers. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "Yes." "And the day after?" "Yes." "Forever." Grace's heart clenched. "As long as you need me, sweetheart." He seemed satisfied with that answer and snuggled into his pillow. "Grace, can you hum that song again from the diner?" So Grace hummed "You Are My Sunshine" until Ethan's breathing evened out and sleep claimed him. She stood to leave, but his hand tightened on hers. "Don't go yet," he mumbled, half asleep. "The bad dreams come when you leave." So Grace stayed sitting on the edge of his bed, holding a 6-year-old's hand and wondering how her life had become this. She must have dozed off because she woke to Alexander's voice. "Grace?" She jerked awake. Alexander stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Sorry I fell asleep." "Don't apologize. He's been sleeping peacefully for the first time in days." Alexander moved closer, looked down at his son. "Thank you." "I didn't do anything." "You did everything." His voice was rough. "He feels safe with you. That's not something money can buy." Grace carefully extracted her hand from Ethan's grip and stood. They moved into the hallway and the bodyguard discreetly stepped in. "Victor found the leak," Alexander said quietly. Grace's heart jumped. "Who?" "One of my accountants, low-level guy. The Castellanos have his daughter, been using her as leverage for information. Oh God, is she... We're getting her back, tonight. Alexander's eyes were cold, and then I'm sending a message that the Castellanos will understand. What kind of message? The permanent kind. Grace grabbed his arm. You're going to kill people. I'm going to protect my family. There's a difference. As there, Alexander looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. You don't understand this world, Grace. You can't show weakness, can't show mercy. The moment you do, they'll take everything from you. And the moment you become them, you've lost anyway. I became them years ago. I made peace with that. His hand covered hers. But you're still good, still pure. Don't let this world change that. Then don't make me watch you become a monster. Something cracked in his expression. I'm already a monster. I've been one since long before you met me. Then why does Ethan love you? Why does Elena stay? Why do your men follow you into danger? Grace stepped closer. Monsters don't inspire love and loyalty. They inspire fear. And I don't see anyone here afraid of you. You should be. But I'm not. And it was true. She should be terrified, should be running, but standing there in the hallway outside a child's bedroom looking at this dangerous man who'd shown her nothing but protection and honesty, Grace felt safe, which was probably the most dangerous feeling of all. Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. They're moving on the accountant's daughter. I have to go. Be careful. I'm always careful. But he paused. Lock your door tonight. Don't open it for anyone but Victor or me. Alexander. Promise me. I promise. He left, and Grace returned to her suite. She locked the door as instructed and tried to sleep, but every sound made her jump. Footsteps in the hall, distant voices, the wind against windows. At 2 a.m. gunshots echoed from somewhere in the distance. Grace sat up, her heart pounding. More shots, then silence. She grabbed her phone, started to call Alexander, then stopped. He was in the middle of a rescue operation. He didn't need her panicking, but the silence stretched and fear crept in. What if something had gone wrong? What if the Castellanos had anticipated the rescue? What if a knock on her door made her scream? Grace, it's me, Victor's voice. Open up! She unlocked the door with shaking hands. Victor stood there, blood on his sleeve, his expression grim. Is Alexander Piaf? He's fine, we got the girl, but there's a problem. Grace's stomach dropped. What problem? The Castellanos knew we were coming. They were waiting. Victor's eyes were hard. We have another leak. Someone higher up. Someone who knew about tonight's operation. Who? We don't know yet, but until we find them, no one is safe. He paused. Mr. Romano wants you and Ethan moved to a secure location. Tonight. Where? I can't tell you that. Security protocol. Victor's hand found her shoulder. Pack light. We leave in 15 minutes. Does Ethan know? Mrs. Romano is waking him now. Grace threw clothes into a bag with shaking hands. Her peaceful life had ended 4 days ago in a diner. Now she was fleeing in the middle of the night from people who wanted her dead, protecting a child she'd known less than a week, trusting a family of criminals to keep her alive. This was insane. This was her life now. And as she followed Victor down darkened hallways toward an uncertain future, Grace realized she'd make the same choice again. Because somewhere in this mansion, a 6-year-old boy was scared and needed her. And that was worth any danger, even if it killed her. The SUV was already running when Grace reached the garage, its engine a low growl in the darkness. Elena was there with Ethan wrapped in a blanket, the boy's face pressed against his mother's shoulder. Grace, Ethan reached for her the moment he saw her. She took him from Elena, felt his small body trembling. I've got you, sweetheart. We're going on an adventure. I don't want an adventure. I want to stay home. I know, but sometimes we have to be brave even when we don't want to. Victor opened the back door. In now. Grace climbed in with Ethan still in her arms. Elena slid in beside them. 2 armed guards took the front seats, and Victor got behind the wheel. Where's Alexander? Elena's voice was tight. Handling the situation. He'll meet us at the location. The SUV pulled out and Grace felt Ethan burrow deeper into her embrace. Through the tinted windows, she saw the Romano estate disappearing behind them. Victor, what exactly happened tonight? Elena demanded. The Castellanos were waiting at the extraction point. Someone told them we were coming. Victor's eyes met Elena's in the rearview mirror. Someone who knew the exact time and location. That's impossible. Only the inner circle knew. Elena's voice cut off. Oh God. What? Grace asked. The inner circle is Alexander's top 5 advisors. Men he's known for decades. Men he trusts with his life. Elena's face had gone pale. If one of them is the leak, then no one is safe, Victor finished grimly. Ethan started crying, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet sobs that broke Grace's heart. Hey, hey. She shifted him so she could see his face. Talk to me. What's wrong? Everyone wants to hurt us. Everyone. And we keep running and running, but they always find us. His small hands gripped her shirt. When does it stop? Grace had no answer. She looked at Elena, who was staring out the window with tears streaming down her face. I thought I could give him a normal childhood, Elena whispered. I thought if we were careful enough, protected enough, he could just be a kid. But he's 6 years old and he knows about safe houses and extraction points and traders. Her voice broke. What kind of mother does this to her child? The kind who loves him enough to keep him alive. Grace's words were fierce. You think normal kids have perfect lives. They have different problems, Elena. Different fears, but they're still scared, still struggling. At least Ethan has parents who would die for him. That's more than a lot of kids get. Elena's eyes snapped to Grace. You don't understand. You're right, I don't. I grew up with a mother who worked herself to death and a father who left when I was 8. I understand abandonment and poverty, in wondering if anyone actually gives a damn if you live or die. Grace's grip on Ethan tightened. This boy has 2 parents who love him. A home, security, education, and people willing to risk their lives to protect him. So no, maybe it's not normal, but it's something. Silence filled the SUV. Then Elena laughed, broken, wet, but real. You're right. God help me, you're right. I usually am, Grace managed to smile. Comes with being a teacher. You're not a teacher yet. Details. Ethan had stopped crying and was looking between the 2 women with confusion and something that might have been hope. Are you and Mommy friends now? Grace met Elena's eyes. Yeah, sweetheart, I think we are. Elena reached over and squeezed Grace's hand. Thank you for saying what I needed to hear. Thank you for not firing me for being mouthy. Please, if I fired everyone who was mouthy to me, I'd have no staff left. Elena's smile faded. Victor, how much longer? 20 minutes, but we have a problem. Grace's stomach dropped. What problem? We're being followed. Black sedan, 3 cars back. Been with us since we left the estate. Ethan whimpered. Grace felt her own fears spike, but forced her voice steady. What do we do? Lose them. Victor's hands tightened on the wheel. Everyone hold on. The SUV accelerated suddenly, throwing them back against the seats. Grace wrapped both arms around Ethan, felt Elena's hand find her shoulder. They're speeding up, one of the guards reported. 2 more vehicles joining them. Of course there are. Victor took a turn so sharp Grace's head hit the window. Call Romano. Tell him we're compromised. The guard was already dialing. Sir, we have a situation. His voice changed. Yes, sir. 3 vehicles. Heading north on, he swore. They're trying to box us in. Grace looked out the back window and saw headlights closing in. Fast. Too fast. Victor. I see them. Another sharp turn. Tires screamed. to back up. 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes. Elena's voice was sharp with fear. The first shot shattered the back window. Ethan screamed. Grace threw herself over him, felt Elena do the same, both of them creating a human shield. More shots. The SUV swerved violently. Return fire, Victor ordered. The guards rolled down windows and started shooting. The sound was deafening. Grace pressed her hands over Ethan's ears and started humming that same stupid song, even though she could barely hear herself over the gunfire. They're trying to force us off the road. The guard in the passenger seat was reloading. We need to. The impact came from the side metal crunching the SUV sliding. Grace felt the world tilt, felt herself being thrown, felt Ethan being ripped from her arms. Then everything stopped. For a moment, there was only silence and the smell of gunpowder and burnt rubber. Everyone alive, Victor's voice strained. Yes, Elena gasped. Ethan, I'm okay, Mommy. Grace's hands were shaking so badly she could barely unbuckle her seatbelt. We need to move. Now. Agreed, Victor kicked open his door. Out. Everyone out. They stumbled from the wrecked SUV onto a dark road. Grace grabbed Ethan, felt his heart hammering against her chest. Elena was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but moving. There, one of the guards pointed to a building, looked like an old warehouse. Get them inside. They ran. Grace's lungs burned. Her arms ached from Ethan's weight, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Behind them, car doors slammed, voices shouting. The warehouse door was locked. Victor shot it open and they stumbled into darkness. Upstairs. He pushed them toward a metal staircase. Find somewhere to hide. What about you, Ajamnu? I'm buying you time. Go. Grace wanted to argue, but Elena was already pulling her up the stairs. They reached the second floor open space. Old machinery nowhere good to hide. There. Elena pointed to a large metal container. Get Ethan inside. What about you? I'm getting that door barricaded. Elena was already moving, dragging a heavy piece of machinery toward the stairs. Grace got Ethan into the container, climbed in after him. It smelled like oil and rust, but it was dark and enclosed and might actually hide them. Grace, I'm scared. Me too, baby. But we're going to be okay. How do you know? She didn't, but she said, because your dad's coming and nothing stops your dad when his family needs him. Gunshots from below. Shouting. The sound of running feet. Grace held Ethan tighter and prayed she was right. 5 minutes passed. 10. The gunfire had stopped, but Grace could hear voices, men searching. Find them. Marco Castellanos' voice. Grace would recognize it anywhere. The woman and the boy. I want them alive. Footsteps on the metal stairs. Getting closer. Grace put her hand over Ethan's mouth, felt him nod, understanding. They barely breathed as the footsteps moved past their hiding spot. Paused. Moved on. More footsteps. These ones stopped right outside the container. Check in here. Grace's heart stopped. The container door started to open. Light spilled in and Grace saw a man's silhouette. She grabbed the wrench she'd felt lying beside her in the dark and waited. The man leaned in, so them started to raise his gun. Grace swung the wrench with everything she had. It connected with his skull with a sickening crack. He dropped like a stone. Holy! Another voice, another guard. Grace scrambled out of the container, wrench raised. The second guard was raising his weapon when a shot rang out. He fell. Elena stood there holding the dead guard's gun with steady hands. Get back in the container. Elena. Now Grace. Grace grabbed Ethan and dove back into the container just as more footsteps thundered up the stairs. We heard shots, Marco's voice. Where are they? Don't know, boss. Antonio and Vince are down. Grace heard Elena's voice, cold and controlled. You want them, you'll have to go through me. Mrs. Romano, how nice to see you again. Marco's voice dripped with false politeness. Put down the gun. You're outnumbered. I've been outnumbered before. Didn't Mom stop me from putting 3 bullets in your cousin's chest last year? A pause. That was you. He touched my car. I don't like people touching my things. Elena's voice was pure steel. And I really don't like people hunting my child. We don't want the boy, we want the waitress. Grace's blood went cold. Then you're not getting either. The waitress saved my son's life. That makes her family. And we protect family. Noble, stupid, but noble. Marco's voice hardened. Last chance. Give us the girl, we let you and the boy walk away. How about this? Instead, you walk away now and I don't kill you before my husband gets here. Marco laughed. Your husband is 20 minutes away. A lot can happen in 20 minutes. Try me and find out. The gunshot made Grace jump. She heard Elena cry out, heard something heavy fall. Mommy! Ethan tried to scramble out, but Grace held him back. Stay quiet, she hissed. Your mother needs you to stay quiet. More shots, the sound of a struggle, then silence. Found them, a voice right outside the container. The waitress and the kid. The door was ripped open. Rough hands grabbed Grace, yanked her out. She kicked and screamed and fought. But there were too many of them. Let her go. Ethan was crying, trying to punch the man holding Grace. Leave her alone. Shut the brat up, Marco ordered. One of the guards grabbed Ethan and Grace saw red. She bit the hand holding her, tasted blood, felt the grip loosen. She twisted free and threw herself at the man holding Ethan. They went down in a tangle. Grace's fists connected with his face, his neck, anywhere she could reach. She'd never been in a fight in her life, but rage and terror made her feral. Enough, Marco's gun pressed against her temple. Move again and I paint these walls with your brain. Grace froze. That's better. Marco hauled her to her feet. You've caused me a lot of trouble, Miss Mason. Good. Grace spat blood. Hope I caused you hell. Oh, you did. But now you're going to help me send a message to Alexander Romano. He nodded to his men. Bring the boy. No, Grace struggled, but Marco's grip was iron. Leave him alone. Take me. Just take me. We are taking you, both of you. Marco's smile was cruel. Romano took my shipment. I'm taking his family. Fair trade. They dragged them toward the stairs. Grace could see Elena on the ground, blood pooling beneath her, her eyes closed. Elena, Grace screamed. Please check if she's dead or dying. Either way, not our problem. Marco pulled Grace down the stairs. Outside, black SUVs waited. They were being shoved toward the nearest one when headlights cut through the darkness. 3 vehicles, no 5, all moving fast. Marco swore, get them in the car now. But the vehicles were already there surrounding them. Doors flew open and men poured out. Dangerous. And leading them was Alexander Romano. His eyes found Grace, then Ethan, then the men holding them. His expression went absolutely cold. Let them go. His voice was quiet, lethal. Or what? Marco still had his gun to Grace's head. You'll kill me. You need me alive, Romano. Your wife just shot 3 of my men. I could press charges, start a war, destroy you legally. My wife is alive. Alexander's voice cracked slightly. For now. Won't be for long if you don't back off. Alexander's eyes met Grace's across the space between them. She saw the calculation there, the fury, the fear, saw him weighing options, strategies, outcomes. She made the decision for him. Grace threw her head back, connecting with Marco's nose. Heard the crunch, felt his grip loosen. She dropped, rolled, got to her feet, and ran toward Alexander. Gunfire erupted. Grace felt something hot slice across her arm, felt herself falling, felt strong arms catch her. I've got you, Alexander's voice in her ear. I've got you. Then he was passing her to someone else, Victor bleeding but alive, and turning back to face Marco. You shot her. Alexander's voice was death itself. You shot what's mine. She's a waitress. She's nobody. She's everything. The roar came from somewhere deep in Alexander's chest. And you just signed your death warrant, Austin. What happened next was brutal and fast. Alexander's men moved like a trained unit, taking out Marco's guards with precise efficiency. Marco himself tried to run, but Alexander caught him. Grace looked away. She'd seen enough violence to last a lifetime. When it was over, Alexander came back to her, blood on his hands and murder in his eyes. But when he touched her face, his hands were gentle. You're hurt. Just a graze. Grace looked past him. Ethan, is he safe? Victor has him. Elena, being airlifted to our private hospital. She'll live. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You bit a mobster and headbutted another. What happened to the nice waitress who just wanted to teach kids? She threw herself in front of a child and ended up in the mafia. Grace laughed slightly, hysterical. Seemed like the next logical step. Alexander pulled her against his chest and Grace felt him shaking. When I saw you with that gun to your head, He couldn't finish. I know. Grace's arms came around him. I felt the same when they took Ethan. They stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd been strangers a week ago holding each other in the aftermath of violence. The leak, Grace said quietly. Did you find them? Alexander's expression hardened. Yes. Who? My oldest friend, my advisor for 15 years. The man who stood beside me when I married Elena. His voice was hollow. He gave the Castellanos everything. Times, locations, plans. All for money to pay his gambling debts. I'm sorry. Don't be. He made his choice. Alexander stepped back. We need to get you to the hospital. Get that arm looked at. I'm fine. You're bleeding on my shirt. Grace looked down and saw he was right. Blood was soaking through her sleeve, dripping onto the ground. Funny how she hadn't felt it until now. Oh, maybe I'm not fine. Her legs gave out and Alexander caught her again. Grace, stay with me. Just tired. Her voice sounded far away. So tired. I know, but you need to stay awake. Can you do that for me? Will you tell Ethan I'm okay? You can tell him yourself when you wake up. Promise me you'll tell him. I promise. Grace, look at me. She tried. Everything was getting fuzzy around the edges. That's it. Good girl. Stay with me. Alexander, we're right here. I don't regret it. Any of it. Her eyes were so heavy. I'd do it again. I know you would. That's what scares me. Grace wanted to ask what he meant, but darkness was pulling her down. She heard Alexander shouting for medics, felt herself being lifted, felt Ethan's small hand find hers. Don't die, Grace. Please don't die. Not dying, she mumbled. Just resting. Wake me for breakfast. Then nothing. When Grace woke up, the first thing she saw was Ethan asleep in a chair beside her bed, his small hand still clutching hers. The second thing she saw was Alexander standing at the window, his back to her shoulders tight with tension. How long? Her voice came out rough. Alexander turned to me down. 2 days, you lost a lot of blood, needed surgery to repair the damage. Ethan hasn't left your side except to sleep in the room next door, refuses to go home until you wake up. Alexander moved closer. He thinks you're his guardian angel. I'm just a waitress who made a series of questionable decisions. You're the woman who saved my son twice. He sat in the chair on her other side, and who's currently recovering in my private hospital under 24-hour guard because you can't seem to stop throwing yourself in danger for my family. Is that a complaint? It's an observation. His hand found hers, the one Ethan wasn't holding. Elena's awake, by the way. Asking for you, Al. Says you saved her life too. I hit a guy with a wrench. She's the one who shot people. She said you kept Ethan calm, kept him safe. That if you hadn't been there, she would have lost her mind trying to protect him alone. Alexander's thumb traced circles on her palm. My whole family is alive because of you. Your whole family is in danger because of me. No, my family's in danger because of choices I made years before you were born. You're just the first good thing to come out of this mess in a very long time. He paused. The leak is handled. The Castellanos are backing off. You're safe now. Until the next threat. There's always a next threat in this life. But you don't have to face them. I can arrange for you to leave. New identity, new city, money to finish your degree anywhere you want. His voice was carefully neutral. You'd be free. Grace looked at Ethan's sleeping face, at his small hand trusting hers even in sleep. She thought about Elena recovering down the hall, about the bond they'd formed. About Alexander, this complicated man who'd given her protection and honesty and something that felt dangerously close to family. And if I don't want to be free, Alexander's eyes snapped to hers. What? What if I want to stay, finish what I started with Ethan? Be part of this family you keep saying I'm already in. Grace, you don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I choose this. Choose you, all of you. She squeezed his hand. I'm saying I'm tired of running from the life I actually want because it's scary or dangerous or unconventional. I'm saying yes. Yes to what? To everything, to being Ethan's tutor, to being part of this family, to, she stopped afraid to say the rest. To what, Grace? Alexander's voice was intense, his eyes locked on hers. To whatever this is between us, whatever it's becoming. The silence stretched. Then Alexander leaned forward and kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. You're sure, terrified, but sure. That's the only kind of sure that matters in this life. He stood. Then welcome to the family, Grace Mason. God help us all. Ethan stirred, his eyes opening. Grace, you're awake. Hey, sweetheart, miss me. So much, he climbed onto the bed, carefully mindful of her IV. Daddy said you were very brave. Your daddy's biased. He's also right here and can hear you. Alexander's smile was small but real, and he's very glad you're awake. Grace looked at the two of them, this dangerous man and his innocent son, and felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe, or purpose, or just the simple knowledge that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Me too, she said softly. Me too. 3 weeks after the warehouse, Grace stood in the Romano kitchen at 6 a.m. making pancakes, while Elena watched with barely concealed amusement. You know we have a chef, right? Your chef doesn't make them with chocolate chips. Grace flipped a pancake. Besides, Ethan asked. Ethan asked for a lot of things. You don't have to say yes to all of them. Watch me. Elena laughed and poured herself coffee. The bandage on her head was smaller now, the stitches healing. She moved slower than before, but she was alive. They were all alive. He's getting attached to you, Elena said quietly. More than attached. He asked Alexander yesterday if you were staying forever. Grace's hand stilled on the spatula. What did Alexander say? That it was up to you. Elena's eyes were knowing. Was it? Before Grace could answer, small feet thundered down the stairs. Grace, you made pancakes. Ethan launched himself at her and she caught him with her good arm. The other was still in a sling. Chocolate chip as requested. You're the best. He climbed onto his chair, already reaching for the syrup. Manners, Elena warned. Please pass the syrup, Grace. You're the best, please. Grace laughed and handed it over. This had become their morning routine. Grace cooked breakfast. Ethan devoured it. Elena pretended to disapprove while secretly loving it. And Alexander, something smells good. Alexander's voice made Grace's heart skip. He appeared in the doorway, the suit already perfect, even though it was barely dawn. His eyes found hers, first held them for a beat too long, then moved to his son. Morning, buddy. Morning, Daddy. Grace made pancakes. I see that. Alexander accepted the coffee Elena handed him. Grace, you're supposed to be resting that arm. It's a sling, not a prison sentence. Doctor's orders were clear. Doctor's orders were 6 weeks of limited activity. Making pancakes qualifies as limited. Grace met his eyes. I'm fine, Alexander. The use of his first name still made something shift in his expression. Stubborn. Pot meat kettle, Ethan giggled. You guys fight like married people. The kitchen went silent. Grace felt her face heat. Elena suddenly became very interested in her coffee. And Alexander was staring at his son with an expression Grace couldn't read. We don't fight, buddy, he said carefully. We debate. Mommy says that's the same thing. Your mother is wise. Alexander's eyes found Grace's again, and occasionally correct. The moment stretched, charged with something Grace didn't want to name. Then her phone buzzed and shattering it. Unknown number. Grace's stomach dropped. She'd changed her number twice, but somehow they always found her. Don't answer it, Alexander said immediately. But Grace was already looking at the text message. 3 words that made her blood run cold. He's still alive. What is it? Elena was beside her. Grace, what's wrong? Grace couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, because she knew exactly who the message was about. Her father. Alexander took the phone from her shaking hands, read the message, and his expression went deadly. Victor, get in here. Victor appeared so fast he must have been right outside. Sir, trace this number now. Alexander handed him the phone. And find out everything about Grace's father. Where he is, what he's doing, who he's talking to. My father's been gone for 17 years, Grace heard herself say. He left when I was 8. Why would, because someone wants leverage over you. Alexander's voice was cold, calculating. And family is always leverage. He's not family. He's a stranger who shares my DNA. Doesn't matter. If the Castellanos think he matters to you, the Castellanos are backing off. You said so yourself. I said they were backing off. I didn't say they were gone. Alexander's hand found her shoulder. Grace, if your father is alive and they find him first, then nothing. He means nothing to me. Are you sure about that? Grace wanted to say yes, wanted to mean it. But somewhere deep in her chest, that 8-year-old girl who'd watched her father walk away was screaming. I don't know, she whispered. Ethan had gone quiet, watching the adults with wide eyes. Elena moved to distract him, but the boy's attention was fixed on Grace. Is someone trying to hurt you again? Grace forced a smile. No, sweetheart, just some old family stuff. But your family is us now, right? The question hung in the air. Grace felt everyone's eyes on her, Ethan's hopeful, Elena's understanding. Alexander's intense. Right, she said softly. You're my family now. Ethan's smile was like sunshine. He went back to his pancakes crisis averted in his 6-year-old mind. But Alexander's hand was still on Grace's shoulder, and she could feel the tension radiating from him. We need to talk, he said quietly. My office, after breakfast. It wasn't a request. 20 minutes later, Grace stood in Alexander's office while he paced like a caged animal. Your father disappeared when you were 8. No contact since then. Correct. Correct. And now someone sends you a message saying he's alive. Someone who knows your new number despite you changing it twice. Alexander's jaw was tight. This isn't random, Grace. This is targeted. I know. So what do you want to do about it? Grace blinked. What do I want? Yes, this is your decision. I can find him, can protect you from him, can make him disappear if that's what you need. But I need to know what you want. The question was so simple and so impossible. What did she want? I want to know why. The words came out before Grace could stop them. Why he left. Why he never came back. Why now, after 17 years, someone's using him as a weapon against me. Alexander stopped pacing. You want to see him? I want answers. Same thing. He pulled out his phone. Victor, I need a location on James Mason. Yes, Grace's father. I want him found in the next 6 hours. Alexander, wait. No. He ended the call and turned to face her. You want answers, you'll get them. But you're not going alone, and you're not going unprotected. I can handle my own father. Can you? Because from where I'm standing, you can't even look at a text message about him without shaking. Grace's hands clenched. That's not fair. Neither is abandoning your 8-year-old daughter, but he did it anyway. Alexander's voice softened. I'm not trying to hurt you, Grace. I'm trying to protect you, even from yourself if necessary. I don't need. Yes, you do. We all do sometimes. He moved closer. You've spent 3 weeks protecting my family. Let me protect you for once. Grace wanted to argue, wanted to prove she was strong enough to handle this alone. But the truth was she was terrified. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Alexander's hand found her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Whatever we find, whatever he says, you're not that abandoned little girl anymore. You're Grace Mason, the woman who threw herself in front of bullets for a child she didn't know. The woman who bit a mobster and lived to tell about it. He doesn't get to make you small again. Tears pricked Grace's eyes. What if I'm not as strong as you think? Then you fake it until you are. That's what strength is, pretending you're okay until one day you actually are. The words hit something deep in Grace's chest. She leaned into his touch, and Alexander pulled her into his arms. They stood there for a long moment, her head on his chest, his hand in her hair. It felt like safety, like home. Alexander, thank you for not making me do this alone. You're not alone anymore. Get used to it. Victor found James Mason in 4 hours, not 6. He was living in a trailer park 2 states over, working as a mechanic, drinking too much, and owing money to the wrong people, including the Castellanos. They've been using him for information about you, Victor reported. He's been feeding them details. Your old address, your habits, places you might go. That's how they knew about the coffee shop. Grace felt sick. My own father sold me out for $5,000 and forgiveness of his gambling debts. Victor's expression was grim. He didn't know they wanted to kill you. Says he thought they just wanted to talk. Do you believe him? No, but it doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what you want to do about it. Grace looked at Alexander. Can I see him? Are you sure that's wise? No, but I need to. She stood straighter. I need to look him in the eye and hear him try to justify what he did. Alexander studied her for a long moment. Okay, but I'm coming with you. I wouldn't have it any other way. They took a small convoy, Grace, Alexander, Victor, and 2 guards. The trailer park was exactly as depressing as Grace had imagined. Rusted trailers, overgrown weeds, broken dreams. Her father's trailer was third from the end. Grace felt her hands shaking as they approached. You can still change your mind, Alexander said quietly. No, I can't. He knocked. Heavy footsteps inside, then the door opened. James Mason looked old. That was Grace's first thought. Old and worn and nothing like the father she remembered. His hair was gray, his face lined, his eyes bloodshot. Then he saw her and something like recognition flickered. Gracie, the nickname hit like a punch. Don't call me that. Jesus, you grew up. You look just like your mother. His eyes moved to Alexander, to the guards, and fear crept in. What is this? What's happening? You tell me, Grace said. You've been selling information about me to people who want me dead. Why? James's face crumpled. They said they just wanted to find you. Talk to you. I didn't know. Liar. The word came out flat. You owed them money. You traded me to clear your debt. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Grace stepped closer. Explain how you abandoned me when I was 8. How you never called, never wrote, never checked if I was alive or dead. Explain how 17 years later you sold me out to criminals. I was trying to protect you. James's voice cracked. Your mother and I, we had problems. Bad problems. People I owed money to were starting to threaten you. I left to keep you safe. By disappearing, by leaving me with a mother who worked herself to death trying to provide for me alone. I sent money. You sent nothing. We were evicted twice. I wore the same shoes for 3 years because we couldn't afford new ones. Where was your money then? James sagged against the doorframe. I wanted to send more, but I got into trouble. Gambling, drinking. It spiraled. And by the time I got clean, you were 16, and I thought you were better off without me. You thought right. Grace's voice was ice. I was better off. I survived without you, built a life without you, and then you sold me out. I'm sorry. Tears were streaming down James's face. God, Gracie, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the woman I became despite you. Apologize to the mother who died exhausted and broken because you weren't there. Apologize to the 8-year-old girl who waited by the window every night, thinking maybe, just maybe, her daddy would come back. Grace's own tears were falling now. Alexander's hand found the small of her back, steadying her. I was weak, James whispered. I'm still weak. I've always been weak. Yes, you have. And I'm done being hurt by your weakness. Grace stepped back. The Castellanos are gone. Their organization is destroyed. So whatever deal you made with them is void. You're free to keep living your sad little life, but you're going to leave me alone. Forever, understand? Gracie, please. My name is Grace. Grace Mason, the woman who survived without you. The woman who made something of herself despite you. The woman who has a family, now a real family, who actually gives a damn if she lives or dies. Her voice hardened. You were my father for 8 years. You've been a stranger for 17. Let's keep it that way. She turned and walked away, Alexander at her side. Behind her, she heard James calling her name, heard him begging for another chance. She didn't look back. In the car, Grace let herself break. Sobs racked her body, 17 years of abandonment and anger and hurt pouring out. Alexander pulled her against him and let her cry his hand, rubbing circles on her back. I'm sorry, she gasped between sobs. I'm sorry, don't apologize. You earned this breakdown. His voice was soft. Let it out. So she did. She cried for the little girl who'd lost her father, for the teenager who'd struggled alone, for the woman who'd built walls around her heart to keep from being abandoned again. And when the tears finally stopped, she felt lighter, emptier, but lighter. Better? Alexander asked. No, but I will be. Grace sat up, wiped her eyes. Thank you for being here. Always. The word was a promise. They drove back in silence, but it was comfortable, peaceful. And when they reached the estate, Grace felt something shift inside her. She'd confronted her past, faced the man who'd hurt her most, and survived it. She was stronger than she'd thought. That night after Ethan was asleep and Elena had retired, Grace found Alexander in his study again. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Can't sleep, can't stop thinking. Grace closed the door behind her. About today, about my father, about everything. Any regrets? Only that I waited 17 years to tell him how I felt. She moved closer, but also grateful. Because if things had been different, if he'd stayed, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have met Ethan, or Elena, or you. Alexander's eyes darkened. Grace, let me finish. She took a breath. I came to this house 3 weeks ago because I had no choice. Stayed because Ethan needed me, but somewhere along the way I stopped staying out of obligation and started staying because I wanted to. Because this place, this family feels more like home than anywhere I've ever been. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done running. Done protecting myself from being hurt by never letting anyone close. Done pretending I don't feel. She stopped, afraid to say it. Don't feel what? Alexander stood moved toward her. Say it, Grace. Don't feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. With you, with Ethan, with Elena, with this crazy, dangerous, beautiful family. Her eyes met his. I'm saying I choose this. All of it, including whatever this is between us. Alexander's honored hand found her face. You're sure because once you're in Grace, you're in. There's no halfway with me. No casual. If you're mine completely. Then I'm yours. The words came out steady, certain. Completely. He kissed her, then deep and claiming and full of everything they'd both been holding back. Grace melted into him, feeling 17 years of walls crumbling. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. I love you. The words were raw, honest. I've loved you since you threw yourself over my son without hesitation. Since you refused my money and called me out on my manipulation. Since you bit a mobster and headbutted another one. You're the bravest, most stubborn, most incredible woman I've ever met, and I love you. Grace's tears were falling again, but these were happy. I love you too. God help me. I love you too. They stood there holding each other, two broken people who had found wholeness together. A soft knock interrupted them. Elena peeked in, saw them, and smiled. Sorry to interrupt, but Ethan's having a nightmare. He's asking for Grace. Grace was already moving. She found Ethan in his bed, tears on his face, reaching for her. Grace, you were gone. In my dream you left and didn't come back. Hey. She gathered him close. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise, sweetheart. I'm staying right here. Forever if you'll have me. Ethan pulled back, eyes wide. Really? You're staying forever. Grace looked at Alexander standing in the doorway, at Elena beside him, at this child who'd become hers in every way that mattered. Really, if it's okay with your parents. It's more than okay, Elena said softly. It's perfect. Alexander's smile was small but genuine. Welcome home, Grace. And just like that, Grace Mason, former waitress, survivor fighter, found the family she'd been searching for her entire life. Not perfect, not safe, not normal, but hers. Completely irrevocably hers. 6 months later, Grace stood in the Romano library teaching Ethan advanced multiplication while sunlight streamed through the windows. Her engagement ring caught the light, simple, elegant, chosen by Alexander, with Elena's input and Ethan's enthusiastic approval. I don't get it, Ethan complained, staring at his worksheet. Yes, you do. You just think you don't. Grace sat beside him. Try again. What's 7 times 8? Ethan's face scrunched in concentration. 56. Perfect. See, you knew it. Only because you're good at teacher. And you're a good student. Grace ruffled his hair. One more problem, then we're done for the day. Then can we play chess? Then we can play chess. Ethan grinned and bent over his work. Grace watched him, felt that familiar swell of love and pride. He'd grown so much in 6 months. Fewer nightmares, more confidence. Happy. The door opened and Alexander appeared with Elena. Both looked serious. Ethan, why don't you go find Victor? Elena suggested. I think he wanted to show you something in the garage. Ethan brightened and ran off, leaving the 3 adults alone. What's wrong? Grace asked. Nothing's wrong. Alexander's smile was reassuring. We just wanted to talk to you about something. Elena sat across from Grace, her expression warm. We've been discussing the wedding, and we had an idea. Okay, Ethan wants to be part of the ceremony. More than just ring bearer. Alexander's hand found Grace's. He wants you to adopt him. Grace's heart stopped. What? He asked us last night if you becoming his stepmom meant you'd really be his mom, forever. Lena's eyes were wet, and we realized that's exactly what it means. You've been his mother in every way that matters since the day you protected him. The paperwork is just a formality. But Grace couldn't breathe. You're his mother. I'm his biological mother. But you're his chosen mother. The one he runs to when he's scared. The one he wants to share his victories with. The one who makes him feel safe. Elena's smile was tremulous. I'm not losing him by sharing him with you. I'm gaining a partner in raising him. A sister. A friend. Tears were streaming down Grace's face. Are you sure? We've never been more sure of anything. Alexander's voice was thick. Grace, you saved my son's life, and then you gave him something even more precious, a mother who chose him, who fought for him, who loves him unconditionally. Let us make it official. Grace couldn't speak, could only nod as happy sobs racked her body. Elena pulled her into a hug, and then Alexander's arms were around both of them, and they stood there, a family forged not in blood but in choice and love and courage. When Ethan ran back in 10 minutes later, Grace was still crying. "Why are you sad?" he asked, worried. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm happy. So happy." "Why?" Grace knelt to his level. "Because your parents just asked me if I wanted to be your mom. Like officially, with paperwork and everything." Ethan's eyes went huge. "Really?" "They said yes. They said yes." Ethan launched himself at her with a whoop of joy. "I'm getting the best mom in the whole world." Grace caught him, held him tight, and looked over his head at Alexander and Elena, her family, her future, her home. "No," she whispered, "I'm getting the best son in the whole world." And she was. 1 year after Grace Mason threw herself over a terrified child in a diner, she stood in the Romano garden wearing a white dress, watching her soon-to-be husband wait for her at the altar with their son, holding her hand, and her best friend, her co-mother, standing beside her as maid of honor. Marcus was there, tears streaming down his weathered face. Victor stood as Alexander's best man, looking uncomfortable in a tux. And Ethan was practically vibrating with excitement, ready to declare to everyone that Grace was officially his mom now. "Ready," Elena whispered. Grace looked at the life she'd built from the ashes of the one that had been destroyed. At the family who'd chosen her as fiercely as she'd chosen them. At the man who'd given her safety and partnership and a love she'd never imagined possible. At the second chance she'd earned by being brave when it mattered most. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." She walked down the aisle with Ethan on one side and Elena on the other. Two mothers united in love for the same child, the same family, the same beautiful, messy, perfect life. When Alexander took her hand, when Ethan proclaimed loudly that "this is my mom now and she's the best." When Grace promised to love and protect this family for the rest of her life, she meant every word. Because Grace Mason had learned something crucial in that diner a year ago. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is love people with your whole heart, even when it's dangerous, even when it's terrifying, even when the world tells you to run. And sometimes when you're brave enough to love like that, you get everything you never knew you needed. A family, a home, a purpose, a future. And Grace Mason had all of it earned through courage built on trust, sealed with love that would last forever. She was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly who she was meant to be, with living exactly the life she was meant to live. And nothing, not danger, not fear, not her painful past, would ever take that away from her again.